Yo, Chuck.
Hey, what's going on, YouTube land? Today I'm going to explain the difference between reference types and value types in JavaScript and why they matter. So before you can even talk about reference types versus value types, you need to understand there's two types of data in JavaScript. There's primitives and then there's non-primitives. All a primitive is just a value type or a data type that doesn't have any objects, properties, or methods attached to it. So if I come in here and I said, let alcoholic equal true, this is a primitive. There's no properties or methods in this variable of alcoholic. Another example might be, let sexual orientation equal undefined. You can see here, no properties or methods. It's just a primitive type. And then another example might be let age equal 69. Same thing, there are no properties, no methods, it's just a true value. These are the primitive types. You don't really got to remember all of them because all you need to know is that they don't have properties or methods attached. With non-primitives, you have objects, arrays, and functions, and all of these are non-primitive because they contain either properties or methods. So let's say we have an object called bodybuilder, and it's going to have a property of steroids, and this is going to be true. Then I'm going to have a function called hulked up, which is going to be a method because all the method is just a property that's a function. And hulked up is going to say console.log getting jacked, brah. So this would be an example of a non-primitive. I have got a property here, and I also have a method of hulked up. So for an array, you might have an array called favorite pastimes. And it's going to be stuff like eating, sleeping, crying. These are your favorite pastimes. And as you know, in JavaScript, arrays are actually technically objects. This is because the properties of an array are the indices, actually. And you can call different methods on arrays, like concat, or map, or .length. These are all methods that you're calling on the array object. Therefore, it's a non-primitive. And then finally, you have functions, like function do stuff, and it's got some parens and it does stuff. And then you can make a variable called myfunc and then set it to do stuff. And then you can call functions or methods upon that function, like bind or call, for instance. So the main point here with non-primitives is just remember properties and methods. If it has that, it is a non-primitive. With the distinction of non-primitives and primitives established, we can start talking about reference types and value types. So value types are always going to be primitives. So let's make a variable called let name equals Kurt Cobain. Now if I console.log name, as one would expect, it returns Kurt Cobain. I have created a new entity in memory because this is a value type of a string, and I'm just creating it when I declare name equals Kurt Cobain. Now, if I came in here and made another variable called new name and set it equal to name, I want to place that side by side in my console.log. And now if I console.log this, as you would expect, I get Kurt Cobain twice. What if I come in here and do new name equals Courtney Love? What do you think will happen? As you might expect, it updates Courtney Love. This is because every time you make a value type, you're creating a new entity in memory. You're not referencing anything. So I'm allowed to do this. I'm allowed to update new name and set it to something else, and it will not affect my original name, even though at the start I said new name equals to name. This is because value types create a new entity in memory. With reference types, you actually are referencing another entity or variable declared in memory. So if I have an array, let's call it favorite football teams. And I'll set it to the Houston Oilers, Tennessee, let's just say the Titans. I can't spell. And let's say the Trailblazers. Is that a basketball team? I don't know. Okay, so favorite football teams is a variable. Let's console.log this. I return that. You get Houston Oilers, Titans, the Trailblazers. Awesome. Now if I make a new array, I'll say new array equals favorite football teams, and then I console.log that side by side, as one would expect, they're the same thing. Let's say I want to change the first entry on my new array to something else, like the LA Lakers. They're the best football team I know. And then return that. Notice that because this variable is a reference type, I'm only creating that initial array in memory the first go around. After that, I'm just referencing it. So because I changed the new array at indices 0, I'm now changing them for both, which is what I don't want to do. So a quick trick or get around to this is when I declare my new array and I don't want it to reference that initial one, but I want the contents of the first array, I can just use some clever spread operator tricks right here. And now these become two separate entities. And if I return that, you see, let me just return it again. You see that they're different now because they're two separate arrays, but initially they were referencing the same thing. So an example I could give you with like an object, you could do const politician, and it's got a value or a property, I should say, not a value. It has a property of honest, and I'm going to say false. Okay. And then I'm going to make a new politician, and it's just going to be referencing the politician. So if I console.log politician side by side with my new politician, and I comment out this code because I don't need this right now, and they're the same thing. They're both dishonest, as one would expect. Now, if I want to change new politician.honest to true, I can just do that. But now they're both true. So again, objects are non-primitive types, so they're going to reference that initial object in memory. But if I want to get around that, I can just create a new object by using the spread operator, which is what I'm going to do here. So we'll say little curly braces, 3 dots, and then now I'm creating a new object in memory that's not referencing that initial object. And now they have different values for honest. But in real life, we know that both would be false. So why is it important that we understand the distinction between value types and reference types? Well, when you're writing code in your program and you have reference types that you make as a variable, and then you make a new variable and that variable references this reference type, then you make changes to the new variable and then it breaks your code and you're like, why did that happen? And that's because you have a reference type. If you don't understand that distinction between that and a value type, then you're gonna run into mistakes, stuff's gonna break. So that about wraps it up with reference types versus value types in JavaScript. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.